Welcome to Soul Center. As you may know, we are here specifically to cultivate ever-expanding good in our lives. That's why we meet here every Sunday. Our spiritual practice is to dovetail with these meetings to lift us to higher and higher experiences of this grace. We're going to get to that in a minute, but first we have a little housekeeping to take care of. From what I understand, somebody that I appreciate exuberantly a lot. Some of you may know that I'm a little bit of a spiritual voyeur. I like to, I watch people, some people call it people watching. But when it's spiritual voyeurism, you're blessing them because they touch your heart. And it makes it so easy for somebody who had a birthday yesterday, Mr. Jesse. I watch you, and I love you, and I am so grateful that you incarnated and were born to bless us. You are just incredible. Everybody, we have like the best. We get the best music. We really do. I am so grateful for this. I am so grateful for you, and we're just going to take a minute. I want, Jesse, if you'll just do me a favor. I just want you to you're not going to do anything. Don't worry, I'm not going to. Well, actually, I need you to come up here. No, I'm just kidding. I just want you to receive being loved, okay? That's all you gotta do. So if you'll just join me, and we're gonna extend our heart through our hands and just send them over Jesse's way. Take a moment to extend blessings. Imagine beams and beams of light just flooding and blessing him. So grateful that Jesse said yes to incarnating, said yes to his gifts, said yes to being here at Soul Center, to being in our lives and blessing us every day. We take a moment and we know that the presence of God is happening to and through us, and we bless him. We bless him with his dreams and his joys being answered in the most benevolent and beautiful ways ever. And we are all, two or more, gathered here to celebrate his life and to celebrate that it is expressing even better every day, even now, and so it is. So it is. Amen. And if there are any other birthdays happening, that applies for you as well. And I just want to welcome you all to Soul Center again. I know we have some new people here, and I want to welcome you to this community, which is just a brilliant starburst of God's light in Newport Beach that shines beyond. And I'm truly grateful to be here for this month celebrating Exuberant Appreciation. And our topic for today is the altitude of attitude. And so what that came to me as a revelation of sorts was about how we are the pilots of our lives. We get to get into the airplane of our life and we get to let it soar. Some of us like to fly under the radar. And, you can kind of do that for a little while, but there's a divine inertia that is going to call you to step into being who you are. And that inertia is going to call you to raise the altitude of how you soar through life. You can only soar under the radar for so long before you're going to have to address your Tudes. I remember when I was in summer camp, when I was young, back in the 70s, when there was I think it was a term, I'm not sure, but it was like, you've got Tude. And when they would say that, it was kind of a little bit of a negative connotation. They're like, something's off, you got a little attitude going on there. And so we want to become aware of our Tudes, the Tude of attitude. And we have to remember that it's our job to self-reflect and to see where our attitudes are. Because what we bring with us in our attitude is what rolls out, and it goes before us, and it can make the straight path crooked sometimes. And we wanted to make the crooked path straight. That's what we are here to do on our journey. As you heard me say before, every single one of us has a mandate, has a charge to step into the highest vision and version of who you are, unfettered by our issues. We want to get the issues out of our tissues, out of our cellular memory, and we want to step into the greatest and grandest vision and version of who we are. But what is that? What is that? That's where our spiritual practice comes in. And so we want to be aware of our attitude. And then we want to take a moment and reflect on how would we like to adjust it? How would we like to be? So sometimes as we're traveling through life, we come across, I don't know if you ever had, well this has happened to me a couple times. I'm kind of out in the world and all of a sudden somebody just says that certain something that sounds like they're trying to give me some constructive criticism, but actually it just goes, and it's like, it elicits a response sometimes where I say, oh yeah, what about you? And I just want to like flip it around and take it and go into fight or flight and kind of get a little angry or something like that. I don't know if anybody's ever had that experience. But one of those things that we want to do is we want to become aware of an attitude adjustment. We want to reattune and realign our attitudes. And one of the things we want to practice is a little bit of CPR. Sometimes we have to give ourselves some CPR, which is just centering in praise and reflection. And what I mean by that is, so let's just use me as an example. When I've had some constructive criticism that's happened to me in the past, and I've had a little bit of a reaction, we all know as metaphysicians of truth and spiritual growth that there really is no time and space. That there is the eternal that we bring into time and space, but time and space is a malleable, illusionary space where we get to have experiences. That's what we're here to do, and that's why we chose to be human, is so that we can have experiences. And for good or for bad, we get to have those experiences. But you know, as Reverend Michael always says, he's always like, okay, life is good, yes? Life is good, yes? Because he's affirming the truth, the eternal truth. Life is good. Life is only good. Actually, life is bliss beyond your wildest dreams. It is grace, it is beauty, it is joy, it is wellness, it is eternality beyond your wildest dreams. So he's affirming the eternal truth, and it's our job to bring that eternal truth into time and space with our spiritual practice and our attitudes as we become aware of our attitudes, and we want to elevate our attitude through some of the one of the most transmuting energies or creative energies is through the Tude of gratitude. Gratitude is a creative energy, and that's one of those things that we want to use to expand. But sometimes we wait to have something to be grateful for. And sometimes we forget to even be grateful. But gratitude is something that you can evoke. You evoke gratitude. But in the practice of centering and praise and reflection of CPR, sometimes we have a moment. I call it like the stubbing of the toe. You stub your toe a little bit or it's my Homer Simpson moment where I'm like, don't, because all of a sudden I'm like having like I really want to just rip your head off. But we know, as a minister, I'm not allowed to do that. But as a person, we really don't want to do that. Because we're all ministers of truth, and we all have a ministry to minister to, and that's just called your life. And so we want to live that greatest and grandest version of our life. And so as we center, as we praise, and we reflect, and coming back to that there is no time or space. So one of the practices I want to bring forward today is that, let's just say yesterday I had a bad experience with somebody. Maybe I wasn't quite as kind or as compassionate or as loving as I could have been, and it left maybe a bitter taste in my mouth. What we want to do in our meditation practice, which just to kind of, cut to the chase. So you know that our meditation practice isn't something we want to squeeze into our routine, right? We don't want to squeeze it in. We want it to grow. So it might start as a 10-minute meditation practice in the morning, maybe a 15-minute in the evening, something like that. But we want it to grow into ceaseless meditation, which is synonymous with lucid divine awareness, like the indigenous tribes in Africa and some of the other cultures around the world, that they don't go into meditation, they're in it all the time. And it is not something where you'd be, I'm meditating. It's not like that. No, you're in a lucid state of multi-dimensional awareness that is more magnificent than you can possibly imagine with your surface mind. But as you stretch your surface mind, because that's what we want to do, as the surface mind merges with the higher mind, it stretches. Your eyes will stretch, your ears will stretch, and you'll be able to hear the subtext of what people are saying that allows you, as Don Miguel Ruiz would say, it's one of those things like, we read those books of the Four Agreements, and it's like, okay, don't take it personally, okay, I'm not going to take it personally, oh my God, I'm going to kill you. And it's like, how do you not take it personally? You don't take it personally by cleansing, by CPR, a little centering, a little praise. Praise being acknowledging, inviting, evoking, and allowing the presence of God. Because in time and space, as you bring the eternal into time and space, that's where the miraculous is cultivated. We are all miracle makers. There's not one of us who is more or less talented or gifted or spiritual than anybody else. It's all whether you want to own it. Do you want to step into it? Do you want to step into bliss, to grace, to beauty? And so that reflection part, there's a lot of different ways to reflect. But what you want to do is you want to reflect back. You want to reflect back to what happened, and you just simply want to go to, how could it have been better? How could it have been more filled with grace, beauty, love, compassion, and understanding? And then you evoke that, and you put it back onto that time. Because that time, if you don't requalify it, is going to fall you forward in the time-space continuum. And so that's how we requalify what happened. And so a lot of us, what we do is, something happens, and we're very focused on the present, and we just kind of like, okay, and then we start carrying our bags. Imagine like you have these ropes tied to your feet, and all the baggage that you've accumulated over the years, it's like it starts getting a little heavy. And that's why we start slowing down as we get older sometimes. If we don't clear up the baggage, we bring it with us. And that's why sometimes we even have that weird experience where, have you ever seen anybody, I've been one of those people, where you have a little bit of an overreaction to something. It's that like, the last straw. Well, the last straw syndrome only happens, it can only happen if you've been carrying baggage with you. You didn't clean up what happened yesterday. So what we want to do is we want to practice our CPR in our meditation practice, and we want to set some simple intentions. Some simple intentions. A, if you have any resistance to meditation or prayer, then set the intention, I love meditation and prayer. I love it. I really love it. I've been in love with it for about 17 years now. Prior to that, I wasn't so in love with it. I was kind of very resistant and actually thought that those were all the weirdos that were, praying and meditating. It's like, all right, whatever. But once you drink the holy nectar, once you drink that punch, there's no greater bliss than grace and beauty and love. And so one of the things that people often, I have a couple friends who are like, well, I want to create this, I want to create more prosperity, I want to be into my creative flow, I want to get more prosperity in my life. What should I do? And I'm like, okay, well what you want to do is, you want to slow down, and you want to get into meditation, and you want to get very intentional, and you want to, okay, well, but what can I do? Okay, well, creation starts in the beginning, starts in the stillness. Nothing happens out here that didn't start in the beginning. And sometimes our beginning comes from the past of what we're dragging along. And then we project that into the present and the future. So we want to requalify that. And so one of the things we want to do, one of the things that happens when you do your meditation practice properly, is you start to let go of time and space, you open up to other dimensions. Meditation is the cornerstone for all mystical practices. There's no mysticism without meditation. And mystical practices, mystical experiences, going through portals and doorways and experiencing other realms, experiencing the very tip of the iceberg is that intuitive hit. Like, oh yeah, somebody, I was just thinking about you and you just called. That's like the tip of the iceberg. So we want to get deeper deeper, and let it, the best part about it is it requires no effort. As a matter of fact, it requires the relinquishing of efforting. How good is that? How good is that? It's like, oh, okay, I get to just, but it does require some intention and some participation. It's deliberate. It's deliberate. And so one of the things that I love to do is, as a way to cultivate that energy, is to think about the things that you love. It's real simple. I do this a lot in our prayer class. We did this, where you just sit there, like, things you love in general. One of the things I love, like I really love, I love a day where it's about 72 degrees out, and there's like puffy white clouds that are kind of slowly breezing by, and I'm outside, and I'm laying down, and I'm looking up at those clouds and the brilliant blue sky, and there's some palm fronds blowing, and you can hear the sound rustling. I love that sound. I love the sound of waterfalls. I love that sound. I love streams. I love dog ears. I love them. I love dog, like the velvety dog ears. I love them. This one may be too much information, TMI. But I love dog paw smell. It's just one of those things that, and so you want to start thinking about what is it that you love. It's a great way to start to set the tone for gratitude. As you start to evoke that into your beingness. I love playing with my microphone. You want to start to set the tone by playing around with, like, what do you love? What do you just love in general? Like, I love this music, I love this band, this is awesome, I love Patricia and Jessica, I love Soul Center. Actually, there's not one person in this room that I don't love. And that's another aspect of this. We think that we don't know other people. And one of the ultimate things in a soul-centered life is that the illusion of these packages of being a man or a woman or this age or this color or that color, with this condition or that condition, we know that's all illusionary. That's all part of the experiences that we are cultivating, and in many cases, we are to transmute. We get to transmute because our life is reflective, and so we're looking out into the world and we're seeing, if we listen to Providence, and the way you listen to Providence is you be still, and you hear the still small voice. And wouldn't it be nice if you never ever had to try to hear the still small voice? And that's what we cultivate in our spiritual practice. Not trying to hear the still small voice. You just hear it. You hear the call of your soul, you hear the light and the truth of God, and you anchor it in your bones on an everyday basis, and then you let it expand. You let it expand. You allow the contagion of love and grace and beauty to have its way with you and to you and through you. And as someone who used to be a proclaimed psychic turn-up, I was part of, some of you have heard my story a little, that part of my life when I was a little bit of a zombie amongst the walking dead, because I wasn't quite awake. And we want to just keep waking up into other realms, other dimensions of grace and bliss and beauty. And so, what we're going to do is, I just want you to take a moment and just think of something that you love. Just think of something you love. It could be one thing, it could be two things, it could be 5 things, whatever it is. And then, just turn to your neighbor and share one of the things that you love. Just share that. You can put a little exuberance in if you want. So as soon as one of you has shared something you love, then switch to the other person sharing something you love. And then we're going to wrap it up. And I'm going to invite you to continue this conversation after service. Because doesn't it feel good? It does a few things. It starts to ignite your neuroreceptors start to release some of that dopamine into your body because you're starting to connect with the things that you love. Your neural net is prime in this space for rewiring. And we want to rewire our neural net from anything that would limit us. We do not want to carry forward lack, limitation in any way, shape, or form. And as some of you heard, the theme of Revelations, of which we have our Revelations, Agape Revelations I can't remember the name of this gathering, I'll say, coming up in, I believe, May, but a couple years ago, it was learning to unlearn. And we want to do that. We want to unlearn things that have brought us into lack and limitation. So, one of those things that we want to do as we're kind of reflecting on our Tudes, we want to start to become aware of our aptitude. Our aptitude is our ability to create. What are the gifts and talents? And so that's one of the Tudes we want to reflect upon is our aptitude. We want to reflect on our altitude. So in this reflection, all we're doing in meditation is we're reflecting. So one of the pieces of reflecting in CPR is reflecting on what has happened, requalifying the energy by taking what you think would be wonderful, eternal God qualities, and placing it back on that time and allow it to requalify the energy. And then another way we reflect is we take the reflection and we start to connect with our gifts and our talents and what's seeking to emerge through us into the world. And we also want to reflect on what is it that I need? What is it that I need to embody in order for that to be the most glorious, the most effortless, the most beautiful experience in my life? And we want to include, and we always know, that whatever is for your highest good is for the highest good of everyone else in our lives. We're always holding that. So those are a couple of the things we want to do with our CPR, with our centering, our praise, and our reflection, is we want to start to reflect on those aspects of our life, because we are the pilots of the plane that we are flying, and we want to change the trajectory of our altitude, and we want to go higher and higher and higher. And as a matter of fact, you want to burst through the stratosphere of the earth and into the unlimited vastness of the cosmos, where it is just beautiful. It's beautiful. You know, if you ever think about how the universe literally reflects back to us, we know that science is saying that the universe just keeps expanding and expanding. Galaxies are growing, and it feels like the edge of the universe just keeps getting further and further out, which is very reflective on the infinite nature of God. And then you have the world kind of in this cocoon of our atmosphere. And it's kind of like reflective of time and space, and kind of outside of that is the infinite. And we want to reflect on the infinite as it flows to and through and as our lives, and have that unlimited abundance that contributes to the plenitude and the magnitude. We want our plenitude. Plenitude, a lot of people associate that tude with prosperity, but it's so much more than prosperity. Plenitude is all needs met. We know in our spiritual truth teachings, all needs are met. But are you experiencing that? That's the whole idea in the spiritual practice. Are you experiencing that? And what do I do to experience that? And that's where, again, we come back to our prayer. In prayer, we invite, we evoke, and we allow the presence to have its way through us. We want to participate. Now, some of the things when you're piloting your plane is you want to make sure who is in the cockpit. Is it your trauma body driving the plane? Or is it your bliss body? And you want your bliss body to be in the cockpit piloting the plane. You do not want your trauma body, because your trauma body, and we get the disclaimer all the time, never make that decision while you're angry, which is a very apropos way to know how it's just the beginning, though. We want to make sure that we're very clear and we're connected. So we use that for our plenitude, and it's gratitude that opens up the door for these tudes to lift us to that higher altitude. So I want you to just all imagine that you are allowing your soul to become the pilot of your life. that the decisions you make come from this providential guidance. This is what we are surrendering to, and we're going to make a few choices here today. We're going to allow it to be fun. It can only be fun. In beauty, in God, in love, it is fun. It is joyous, it is blissful, it is spacious, it is magnificent. And I'm going to also include that we allow it to be inclusive. That's what this community is also. It's a representation of feeling included and remembering that there is no they, there's no other people, there's just the oneness that shows up as all the multitudes of people on the planet that reflect back to us what we need to see, and we want to use our secret decoder, which is prayer and meditation, to interpret properly. Divine right discernment is what we are in, and we are allowing it. Everybody, each one of us has that ability. So as we think of things that we love, I'm going to just have you join me with a couple declarations of things that I think you might find, useful. So if you want to stand and join me and repeat after me. I love being financially free.
I love being financially free.
I love being loved.
I love being loved.
I love expressing radiant wellness.
I love expressing radiant wellness.
And I love being grateful.
I love being grateful.
And I'm going to throw in an extra one. I love my meditation practice.
I love my meditation practice.
It is beautiful, it is peaceful, and we let it be.
It is beautiful, it is peaceful, and we let it be.
And so it is.
So it is.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. So I just want to conclude by letting you know, if you read the Spirit, before you be incarnated into the human experience, you signed this little contract. And there was a lot of small print in there. Some of the small print said, remember to remember, don't blame or shame. We all signed this contract, but some of us forgot. And so one of the things that we want to remember is that there are certain areas of our life where life force, where chi, where prana has been absent for a while. There's certain areas, believe it or not, as I've been growing, what I've noticed is that as I've been expanded, because what your spiritual practice will do is it will expand you. You will not, first of all, we remember, we don't want to be the same. We want to change. We want to transmute into a greater and grander vision and version of our authentic self. That's the whole purpose of this journey. And so we want to allow that expansion. But what happens is sometimes there's certain parts of our beingness that have atrophied because we haven't allowed that life force in there. So sometimes if you remember, you don't have to remember, but have that experience where your arm or your leg falls asleep because the life force has stopped going in because you cut off a vein or something like that that's supplying the life force, and then you're like, oh, okay, and then you uncross your leg, and then all of a sudden the life force, the love, starts to flow back in, and then there's that weird moment where you're like, oh my God, you can't move your leg or something like that. Well, that happens on the spiritual path. All of a sudden, you're going to start to allow life force and love and grace back into areas of your life, and it's going to feel a little funky for a moment. And so we want to allow that funkiness. So we just want to know, if you know that in advance, because sometimes it's kind of like you feel like, because you're allowing that love and that intelligence and that beauty back in. So we're going to claim that, and we're going to know it, and we're going to seal it with a prayer, if you'll join me as we turn within. Oh, how grateful I am to know that the holy presence of God, that omniamorous, magnificent light that loves us beyond our wildest dreams, that is everywhere, that omniscience, that grace, that beauty, that is ever expanding good, having its way, that created us in its image and likeness, that each and every one of us here today has said yes to a greater and grander vision and version of our lives than ever before. We have said yes to allowing our soul to take over the pilot seat, that we have said yes to allowing this good to flow and glow into the areas of our lives that maybe it has been neglected, and to transform us in beautiful and benevolent ways. I am grateful to know that the universe is friendly. It is friendly beyond our wildest dreams, and that there is a mandate from God that we shall all rise. And as we rise, all unto us rise, and we allow that. We allow the benevolent grace of God